Well, back in late September, I packed up my truck and left South Dakota for a month-long road trip. My first stop was in Nebraska, where I had just a few days to hunt before I needed to head on to Iowa. And on the last day, I finally found the hot sign I had been searching for and was able to arrow a nice buck at 12 yards, and also made a new friend with a Wisconsin bow hunter by the name of Travis, who helped me drag my buck out of the field. So from there, I headed on to Iowa to spend the next 3 weeks behind the camera filming the guys as the bow season and eventually the early muzzleloader season opened up. Right out of the gate, we were in the action. Jake and Ted filled doe tags, we had several encounters with good bucks, and the trail cameras revealed some daylight movers. In mid-October, a major cold front rolled in right in time for the early muzzleloader season, and it didn't take long for Ted to strike with the smoke pole. The next day, Jake returned from a successful North Dakota hunt and bought a muzzleloader tag as well. And little did we know, 2 days later, we'd have the wildest day of hunting in October that any of us had ever experienced. As we sat on the edge of a bedding area, we saw no fewer than 3 shooter bucks throughout the day, with Ted arrowing one at 7 yards at 11:30 a.m. and Jake dropping the hammer on another at 175 yards with a muzzleloader. So after enjoying one of our best runs of success and having a blast hanging out with the crew in deer camp, it was time to head back home to South Dakota to see Mindy and get to work on the mountain of editing from the Iowa hunts. After a few days of staring at the computer, it was time for a break, so I headed to the property that I've been hunting the past 3 seasons here in South Dakota to scout and check a couple of trail cameras. Now that the cattle had been moved out of the main part of the property, I'd hoped that the deer would move back in, but there was very little evidence of fresh sign, and the trail camera revealed only a few does and fawns, and more bull elk than anything else. So while it wasn't what I hoped to find, I had one more area that I was interested to check out. A spot that I had found a buck bedding in back in 2020, where I nearly arrowed him as he returned to his bed that I was hunting over that morning.
Buck just got up out of his bed. Well, just had an interesting encounter here. I gotta keep my voice down. I apologize, I'm gonna have to whisper here. But working my way up this steep hill, I just came from that big ridge over there. Checked the trail camera. I looped my way around and was coming up to scout into another ridge system on this property. About 250 yards from here is where 2 years ago, 2020, the first year I hunted here, I bumped a buck from his bed when I was scouting, and then 2 days later went back in to hunt over his bed. And that buck came back that morning, and I missed him at 35 yards, shot just over the top of him. And then he trotted about 15 yards, I stopped and looked back, stood there for a half hour surveying the area, and then bedded down and was there for 7 hours, got up and rebedded. I thought maybe I was gonna get another shot at him. So anyways, it was a really cool encounter with that buck. And now as I'm coming up this hill, I wanted to scope out this ridge right here where I'd hunted 2 years ago where that buck was bedded, just to see if there was any sign up in here. And sure enough, I'm working my way up this ridge. I wanted to get up on top. I've got the wind in my face. And about 40 yards away, up jumps a buck. And it's that same tall 8-pointer that I bumped here back in 2020. Probably within, let's see, measure it here. Yeah, actually it's not that far at all from where, yeah, it's only 100 yards. So 100 yards from where I bumped him in 2020, then I missed him 2 days later. Here he is, bedded up on this ridge. I'm gonna give him a little bit of time to move off here in case he just bounded up out of his bed and then turned to look back. I don't wanna just walk up on top and bust him again, because this is a lot like what happened 2 years ago where he saw me from, that time it was a little bit farther away, maybe 100 yards. He kind of saw me down below, and then I could see him get up out of his bed and just trot off, and I just let it be for a while. And I went up, scouted, saw where he's bedded, picked out a tree, and came back in 2 days later. So that's real interesting. That's got me excited, especially since I just haven't been seeing much sign in here. Not like he blew or anything like that. He just got up and trotted off, almost identical to what happened 2 years ago. It's actually pretty freaky how similar this scenario is. It's gonna be really freaky if in a couple of days I get the right wind to hunt here. If he comes back in, I get another crack at him. That would be incredible. Looks like a bed right there. And right up in here against this deadfall, the wind is coming like this. Like the wind swirls right here as well. So he's in a spot where he's got the wind coming over his back. It swirls up here, and then you can see downhill here. I was about 40 yards from here when he heard and or saw me. But he just trotted off up over the ridge. Several trees I could get in up here. just literally, hunt over where he was bedded again, just like I did a couple years ago. There's that deadfall right there. I'm not going to get any closer than this, but there's another freshly used bed. That buck was probably in that bed right there this morning. That is freshly matted down. Probably was bedded there. Ended up just over there. Not something I want to make a habit out of, busting bucks out of their beds, but when it happens under the right circumstances, you've got a pinpoint on the spot where a buck is bedding. I've already said it several times, but 2 years ago, he came back in and bedded in the same exact spot 2 days later. How freaky would that be? I've got a north wind coming up, not tomorrow, but the next day. Would set up, I could come in up the backside just like I did here, come in super, super early, and get set up in one of these trees, see if he comes back into his bed.
And here we go. It is early. It's just after 3 a.m. Going in to hunt the buck bedroom. This is where the deer tour gets to be a little bit of a grind, running on a few hours of sleep, and spent all day yesterday and late into the night working on an episode where Jake and Ted both killed a buck from the same spot in Iowa. Jake with a muzzleloader, Ted with a bow. Craziest day that we've ever had hunting in October. But anyways, it's going to be, right now as I'm editing it, looks like it's going to be close to an hour-long video, which is 2 to 3 times longer than our normal episodes, and it's definitely taken 2 to 3 times longer putting this whole thing together because there's just so many moving parts. But I'm excited. It may not look like it, but I'm excited to go in and hunt this spot. Maybe we can pull off a bump and dump. It's a pretty aggressive move to hunt over a buck's bed, but under the right circumstances, it can definitely work. I'm fired up, tired, a little run down, but fired up about this hunt this morning. Cold, late October morning, hunting right in a buck's bedroom, but got the tree picked out already from the other day. Just take my time, get up in there, be quiet as I can. Hopefully that's all 8 comes in to bed down for the day.
Well, it's finally legal shooting time. I like the looks of it in here. The tree worked out. The wind is steady, which is good. There's a cluster of 3 beds on this little knob right here in front of me. There's one off to my right. That buck was in yesterday. Now it's just a waiting game. But man, you want to talk about being on pins and needles. Once again, it's kind of a close quarter type setup. Pop up and be within bow range, or be very close to be within bow range. that was cool. Not exactly the deer that I was hoping to have come, but a really cool encounter nonetheless. Those fawns came right up here and bedded right down. Actually bedded down multiple times. One of the does that was directly underneath me was browsing on the branch that I had cut. But I've noticed that before on this property. The first year I hunted it, the landowner had cut some trees down or had cut some branches off of some trees. So there's a big pile of pine branches. And on several occasions I would see deer go over to them and feed on them for extended periods of time. But it's hard to believe it could be of much nutritional value. That's something we'll have to look into more. One of the adult does and the fawns looked up here a couple times, and I could tell that something was up here, but they didn't spook. And in fact, one of the adult does got directly behind me, directly downwind. Obviously wasn't catching my scent or enough of my scent, but thankfully they moved off. It would have been really, really tough to have them hanging around here. If a buck came in, and to be able to make the movement I would need it to. But it was exciting to have a close encounter like that. That was awesome. If I wasn't hunting in what I felt like was a buck's bedroom, I would have definitely shot one of those does. Got a doe tag. I'm getting close to 8:30 right now. I'll probably sit in here until 10:30 at least, a couple more hours. Cold morning like this, high pressure, day winds are starting to pick up. Deer may move late in the morning, especially way back in the bedding like this. It's a little after 10 o'clock and haven't seen anything since those does and fawns left. Done a couple calling sequences and didn't get anything to respond. Not sure that I'm going to get to hunt this again anytime soon. But anyways, I really like the way that this tree's set up and slip in quietly up the backside of this ridge, leave minimal amount of scent. When I'm hunting it, my wind is blowing over this valley. And I had all those deer underneath me this morning and nothing really got spooky. I think it'd just be a matter of time being up on this ridge before that buck or some other good buck would come through here. But anyways, I'm gonna climb down, go get something to eat, just get right back to it for the afternoon hunt.
All right, getting geared up for the evening hunt here. Still nice and cool today, but this evening I'm going back into a spot that I'm excited about. This is where back in mid-September I hunted and had an encounter with just a big-bodied, mature, tall 8-pointer with a flyer off the back. Really cool, big-bodied buck. So both times I've seen mature bucks in this spot. Unfortunately, they've stayed on the other side of the fence, about 50, 60 yards away, well out of range. But this evening, I'm going to take the decoy in, and hopefully that will be the difference maker. What I like about this ridge top is that it's pretty wide open, so buck could look down there and see the decoy in front of me from 150 yards away or something like that, depending on which direction they come from. But the decoy is probably one of my favorite tactics to use. I mean, we had so many successful hunts with them in Nebraska and some in Iowa as well. But in Nebraska, in the open country that I grew up hunting, let's just say the decoy brought a lot of bucks within bow range. So I love the interaction you get, the aggressive response a lot of times you get from bucks, get them all bristle up, coming in posturing, and I love the whole strategy around it. So hopefully it works out tonight. It's never a guarantee you get a bunch of does to come out or something and don't like the decoy. Sometimes it can ruin a hunt as well. But again, it's one of my favorite tactics. I'm excited to use it tonight. Got a steep hill to climb up here, so definitely going to get a good workout with my heavy pack and then with the decoy.
Well, I'm set up and ready to go for the evening hunt here. Got the decoy out, but last time I sat 15, 20 yards from here, that was with a northeast wind blowing my scent down over the ridge that way. Tonight, got a southeast coming like this, but this is a big long ridge here, and there's a bunch of secondaries that come off of it. On all of those secondaries, there's trails that go down to the bottom. You probably could see it. You might be able to see it here. There's a beaten trail There's another trail right here that comes out and comes down behind me. So a lot of the sign, a lot of the trails indicate deer movement coming like this, out of that drainage, and then following these secondaries down into the bottom. But the few times that I've hunted it, most of the deer that I've seen have actually been on the other side of the fence and follow a trail that kind of follows the ridge down. So if anything comes through here, up on top, or even down one of those secondaries, about 150 yards away, they'll be able to see the decoy right here. In fact, last November, I wished I would have brought a decoy up here when I hunted this for the first time, because that buck was about 60 yards away. I grunted at him out of desperation, but he could look right down to where I was calling from, and obviously there wasn't a deer there. In fact, it made him nervous and he turned around and left. But that deer that I'm talking about, that I'm showing you right now, is the same buck that I jumped 2 days ago when I was scouting, and that was a buck that I went in and was hunting this morning. So who knows, maybe he'll show up tonight. And I've also got 2 or 3 other bucks on trail camera right here back in early September that are real nice bucks. And of course there's the one that I saw, the tall 8-pointer with the flyer. Definitely some good bucks in this area. Hopefully get an opportunity to call one in or see one and bring him into the decoy. He's walking off right now. It's after the end of legal shooting time. It's been a heck of an evening. I'll have to have a wrap up back in the vehicle and I can talk a little bit louder.
Well, I slipped out of there quietly as I could, just got back to the truck, and man, what a night. That was incredible. I ended up having deer around me for over 45 minutes, and I thought for sure I was going to get a shot at that first 8-pointer that came through. Big-bodied, mature buck. You know, it looks like at least 4- or 5-year-old buck. In fact, it looked a lot like the buck that I've been talking about, the one that I missed a couple years ago and the one that I saw last year in that same exact spot, and then the one that I jumped just a couple days ago that I was hunting this morning. Looked a lot like him, but I don't know that it was the same one. Not that it matters. I definitely would have shot that buck. But I had all those does and fawns around the decoy, and then he came up to the fence, and a couple times it looked like he was about ready to jump. But as these deer were hanging out there, they kept looking off to my right, like there was something over there they didn't like. And then a fawn blew and kind of spooked everything real quick. They didn't completely run off, but you know, the buck ran back about 10-15 yards, and then everything was on high alert. They all were looking in the same direction, so I don't know what was going on over there. Maybe it could have been another guy that was hunting in that area. It could have been a coyote, or I don't know that this would have been the case, but there was a skunk that came through a little bit later, walked right by the buck. And I don't know if that fawn saw the skunk earlier and blew, but even as that skunk walked by the buck, he was still looking off to the west like there was something still down there. So I don't know what was going on, but eventually he walked off and stayed out of range and never got an opportunity. But as soon as he left, another buck showed up, and it was that tall 8-pointer with the flyer, and he was looking over in my direction, kind of stood around for a long time, just slowly working his way in, grunted at him, got his attention. He saw the decoy and then kind of turned and started coming towards me. And I thought, here we go. You know, he's going to cross the fence and I'll get a shot at him. But he hung up at about 45-50 yards and looked like he was kind of posturing aggressively, looked like he had his ears back. And I thought maybe he would cross. It was going to have to be quick because I was running out of legal shooting time. But as he was standing there looking at the decoy, I felt the wind swirl ever so slightly. I could feel it on the back of my neck. And at that point, he lifted his head up, trotted off, and then walked slowly away. So I was hoping for a little bit better results with the decoy tonight. Neither one of those bucks had a real aggressive reaction to it. It's not like they just came marching across the fence and marching right into it like we've had happen so many times in the past. But that was a fun hunt tonight. So hopefully I get a chance to get back after those bucks at some point here in South Dakota. But otherwise, we'll be hitting the road and either going to Kansas or Iowa. Right now, Zach is in Minnesota. He's on some bucks there. Jake and Aaron are in Iowa. They're on bucks as well. Ted is in Kansas, so it's an exciting time of the season. So I'm gonna head home, get something to eat, hop back on the computer, get back to editing, keep cranking out content for you guys. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you on the next one.